Guys, welcome to the First Responder Playbook. I'm excited to have Dr. Grant Kruhly with me tonight, or as he likes to call, Dr. G.
Yeah.
Dr. G, tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Um, well, first and foremost, I'm a martial specialist, and I trained over about 46 years altogether. And I'm at one point in time until at least year 2000, anyway, I would have been in about the top 1% of martial specialists for my type of martial craft.
Uh, what,
Uh,
what what kind of martial arts did you do?
well, I was one of the elite people for Yoshinkai Aikido, and I train about 50,000 hours there. And then I carry Gembu Soto Jits on my shoulders, which is my teacher Kushida Sensei's family sword method. His father was decorated by the Emperor of Japan for uh, participating in the war in Manchuria. And then I studied now at least 26 years under Yagyu Nobuharu Taida Toshimichi and Yagyu Koichi Tada Toshinobu, 21st and 22nd Grand Master of the Owari Yagyu Shinkageru. So that's a professional sword. And that's the only type of martial craft that I still continue. I left Aikido in the year 2000. And then I did 4 years of studying for lethal engagement of mass as far as warfare goes, or hand-to-hand combat under Michael Robert Pick, who served First Marines in Vietnam, and he's a Mr. Pick is a specialist. He's an older man now, but he was always basically not for the public. He's engaged for like black ops. The military would call him in. He served 3 tours of duty in Nam, and he was a Marine sniper. Um, so he was a real. I always was privileged to study under great men, uh, all of them masters in their craft. And then I did tactical firearms in my back in my 40s. I began trying to become a real professional at tactical firearms, and I began with front sight under Chuck Taylor, Gabe Suarez, and Mark Fleischman. And I continued for quite a few years to know Gabe and Mark, who I respect tremendously. And there's a number of other guys that I had a chance to study under. But I want you to understand now, as far as martial capacity goes, I was never in a firefight. I'm street tested. I always put myself in harm's way in Detroit and in the bar scene and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not a dojo person. I call a dojo person is someone who just looks good in the dojo, but they can't go out into the world. I'm not like that. I always pride myself on being the real deal.
You
And
applied it
then
applied it in the real world.
yes, otherwise I would consider myself fake.
Yep.
And then uh, later on, I moved on to becoming a professional healer. I'm a distance healer now. I became a licensed doctor in Georgia and Tennessee, and then I uh, learned how to be a distance healer. So I'm a specialist of quantum physics and consciousness, and I help people all over the world. Uh, I live in Thailand now. I moved to Thailand 2015, and you can be on Mars. It doesn't make any difference to me. I will take care of you from wherever you are using quantum physics. So once upon a time, my whole life was to be a professional warrior class man, and I trained. I was always proud to train military and police personnel, and I was trained by them, especially Marines.
Yep.
And I always was very honored to do that kind of thing, and that they would come and study under me. And the idea was to be a consummate elite warrior. And when it comes to first responders, there's nobody I respect more because they have to deal with lethal, very severe situations, chaotic situations, and it takes a lot of guts, and it takes a special kind of person to be able to do that for real.
Well,
And
thank
because
you.
they're armed, yeah, because they're armed, my part in all of that is if you're armed, uh, you should be a very, very, very skilled professional because your life depends on it, other people's lives depend on it, and you're in that profession. And so that's the way I was approaching all of that. And the guys that would come to see me from SWAT or from the different branches of military, they had that longing to be a very refined, honed warrior class person, and
Well,
that's what they would come to see me for.
that's awesome. How did you make the initial connection and get in that world of training with like military and police?
Well, I when I was a kid, um, the way I psychologically, when I failed grade one, my dad was a boxer in World War II, and he's a naval officer, and he was a proud man. And then when they failed me, he didn't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
And that was back in Windsor, Ontario, where I was born. So emotionally speaking, the family abandoned me at the age of 6. And when I used to watch television, because I was always looking for someone to replace dad, I wanted to be. I always had the longing, always to how to be a man.
Right.
And I always noticed the guys that were the heroes were the toughest and the strongest. So I became a fighter, and I was a fairly viable fighter. And then I started training professionally by the age of 18. I started training at 13, but I was a professional by the age of 18. And then, of course, a lot of the guys that I would meet would be in the police forces, and I've always gravitated to the older folks and Vietnam vets. I met lots and lots of them, and I started to work for a number of police officers that had their own private business, entrepreneurial business in Detroit. And that's where I started to get my first mentorship, but from people like professional police officers that were really what I consider to be very high class elite men. And then when I moved to California in 1994, pardon me, 1991, and I established my dojo in Silicon Valley. There, my dojo was just down the road from Moffett Field, and NASA was there, and there was military all over the place. And they just automatically found me, and I always found them. And I had the honor of some of my students, like Marco, was Force Recon, Vietnam, one of the greatest men I ever met in my life. And oh, there's brings back a lot of good memories. And we train very, very hard. There's very elite professional training, 4 to 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not children's play. I have nothing to do with commercial martial art or anything like that. And I always train everybody myself, and I train with them. And then I would learn from those great men because they were in battle, or they were on the Palo Alto SWAT team. A number of those guys were my students for years, 5, 6, 7 years. And my job was to make them the greatest they could possibly be. as sharp as a razor. And that's what I did.
That's awesome. Um, can you kind of you've kind of touched on it? Can you talk about the importance of like training of like martial arts in law enforcement? Because you see a lot today. A lot of guys are training jujitsu, but any
Mhm.
sort of self defense tactics like that. Can you touch on just like how important that is in the first responder world?
As far as I'm concerned, it's top of the line. Why? Because you carry a firearm. You have whichever one you're carrying. I was always trained with a Glock, and you might have to have a tactical shotgun with you, and you're facing people that'll kill you. Um, so the first and foremost thing you have to be able to do is handle that gun with surgical precision. It takes 1.4 seconds for the human brain because the frontal cortex is so slow. It only processes 40 bits of information a second. So it takes 1.4 seconds to respond to an attack. And a guy can uh, close the distance of 21 feet in 1.4 seconds. So if he has a knife and you have a Glock, for you to bring that into battery and take aim and give him two shots center of mass, you need a minimum of 1.4 seconds, but he can run 21 feet. And most situations are going to happen real close quarter. So the idea of uh, response and self defense is a bunch of nonsense. Whoever is the attacker, the offensive person, if he makes the move, it only takes 0.1% of a second to drive for him to drive his finger through your eye. If you're in range, you're never going to get. So you need to be a very sharp warrior class person who can very consistently handle that gun really, really well. If you choose to hold a knife, you better know how to use it. Knife fighting, of course, is a bunch of nonsense. As far as fighting someone, you have a knife and he has a knife. That's a 10 miles of bad road because the knife is so short. So the distance you're fighting someone very close to you, and you cannot control any tiny angle, any twisting. That's why a knife is considered one of the most dangerous, lethal weapons there is because it's so versatile. So all of those kinds of things you should know and train yourself, and then of course, you've got to be in good shape, and you have to have that kind of mental attitude. Whether I get hit or cut, I keep going no matter what. You got to drill it into your consciousness, and then there is all of the other knowledges that the officer or responder needs, all of the laws, paperwork, the ins and outs of all those things. But if you're dead and gone, or they kill you, or you're maimed, and the paperwork doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
And if you get yourself into a situation, let's say for whatever reason, you don't have backup, and there's 2, 3 guys, what are you going to do? So you have to not only it's not realistic to think you can just fight and beat off a whole bunch of people like the movies, but you can control them mentally.
Yep.
And that when I used to deal with motorcycle gang guys, I was a bouncer in Detroit for years in the striptease circuit to test myself. When you get these guys in front of you and they're way the hell bigger and stronger than I am, and I'm not, Bruce Lee is in the movies. So what you have to have is a mindset of how to control, dominate, or lead those people. And you got to be, no matter how scared you might be inside, you got to look like Clint Eastwood on the outside. And all this stuff takes practice. So, as Jim Rohn would say in terms of business, you groom yourself in private to have success in the public. So, just like the Marines or anybody, the only thing you can do that you can control is how well you're trained and how well you're prepared. And like I said, I always regretted, I'm an older man now, but those days are gone. But I always regretted the fact I was never in a firefight. I was in all kinds of other situations, but I don't know how I would do. And I always wondered,
Yep.
But I trained myself. I always train to be as elite as possible so that when you're in lethal engagement of math, when you're in a lethal engagement, your skill level and fine motor control will drop a minimum of 50%. 50%.
Wow.
Now, if you're poorly trained, you won't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yep.
If the stress level, because the stress and the fear drives the cortisol, the amygdala lights up, cortisol drops into your system, all of the adrenaline goes to the large muscles, and the fine trigger control, sight picture, sight alignment trigger control that you need to be able to hit that target, especially if he's moving or if there's more than one. You have to be highly trained. So that was always my, and still is, that's my number one advice. If you're going to carry a firearm, be as good with that thing as you possibly can. And it doesn't take. You can do, like Gabe Suarez would say, you take dry fire practice 15 minutes a day, dry fire, and then say once a week, go down and validate your firearm skill with some live fire, and just keep yourself sharp. You got have to be sharp, have to be strong, and have endurance. And let's say you're in a chase, and if the other guy is in real great shape and you're not, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yep.
So all those things go into play. And I'll never forget when I saw the extreme expertise of Mark Fleischman, Gabe Suarez. Looked like a machine. Is beautiful. So I use that example, and then you meet these guys, like Marco was in Vietnam. He was force recon. Or you meet Mr. Pick, and when they're talking from their guts,
Yep.
from experience. And I always gravitated to those kind of men, and I try to absorb that into myself, so that, like Mr. Pick says, iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. We inspire each other. We inspire each other, and I'm
Absolutely.
a huge believer in that.
I love that because you got to train your mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
You really do. Let me ask you something. Do you think I see that you got your doctorate and you did chiropractic work. Do you think your martial arts background helped you to prepare to finish that and get it done?
Yeah, of course. Um, it's all the same mindset. When I was a martial artist, I wasn't a person where I'm trying to do it for me.
Yep.
So the fundamental thing about, for me, is service and purpose. So I was a person who served the craft to pass it on to the next generation, and then I served my teacher I serve my students, I serve the society. So then a doctor, what's a doctor? Same thing,
Yep.
service. Everything I do and everything I believe in is purpose and service driven. So it transferred that way. And then, of course, I'm like, I won't give up. Eh? Nothing going to stop me.
There's nothing wrong with
So,
that.
yeah, once I set my mind, I had my back broke right in half when I was 27 weight training, and that slowed me down for 3 years. But I came back. I'm crippled now. I had a huge car crash 16 months ago, and I'm just now able to walk for the first time in an entire year. I've been I'm all alone here. My wife works in Norway to support her family, so uh, I have to sort of remake my spine chiropractically. I'm not ever going to have no operation. I never did have an operation, so my nerves got enormously inflamed, and but nothing going to stop me. The thing that makes me get up and move, people count on me all over the world. So as long as people need me, nothing's going to stop me unless I'm dead. Same thing with all of the first responder. I mean, if people had any concept of what the first responders face, I love firemen. I think firemen are the most astounding people in the world. You look at a fire and they're walking into that thing.
Yep.
And one of my good friends was a fireman, and he said, we run in where everyone else is running out. That takes a special kind of man. I really admire that. Without the first responders, it'd be hell on earth.
Yeah. We always make a joke, firemen and police officers kind of joke with each other and give each other a hard time, but the way I look at it is only I can make fun of them. Like they may be the people that we joke around with, but only I can do that, because at the
Yeah,
end of the day, we're gonna have each other's backs.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I want to talk about. Tell me about the best technique and your work you're doing now, and how do you think that could help first responders moving forward?
Oh, I'm waiting for that chance. I I do morphic field physics, so what that means is I can take an entire um, how many people how many people are in a SWAT team when they're going to go takes on a task? How many of them are there?
I'd say usually around five, six, seven, somewhere in there.
Okay, so it's just a small group. I can do physics, morphic field physics in the thousands. So
Wow.
you take what you do is the chief of police or the chief just tells me I want to see a picture of the each of the officers' face and their name. And then I put all those guys as a collective, and that collective has an emergent property, which is the sum total of the consciousness of all of them together as a team. So you think of that team as one entity. If they're operating with total coherence, that's how they operate, right? Now, what I can do is I'll go into the team and I'll check for any kind of interference between each other and whatever their task is, or let's say the chief wants to see them better in this area, that area, that area. I can go through that group in real time because everything I do is in real time, and I will remove the weakness or the negative or the fear or the doubt, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I will remove it and pull them up. I do that with sports teams, with think tanks. Like let's say I call it a think tank. let's say I have like a corporate boardroom,
Yep.
and they got to arrive. They need to be they need to all be compatible with each other, and there's dissonance. There's trouble. I can make them all remove the interference so that they all work together smoothly. So um, you can see small examples of stuff like this with people like HeartMath. The HeartMath Institute has done work with police forces and with hospitals. The stuff that I do is immediate, requires no effort on the part of the people. So the entire team, I'll hone them up in a half an hour, and it's done. And they don't have to go into a meditation or do anything. I can do it in real time. So that's the difference between with applied quantum physics through consciousness versus, like, let's say you get the SWAT team or the boys, and you want to let them do heart math. What is that doing? Well, within 5 minutes of doing that meditation, cortisol drops 45%, DHEA comes up 45%, and the brain in their head, the cranium, uh, entrains to their heart rate variability rhythm. So what happens when they do heart math? They become calm, integrated, and they're in a superior state. And the state can not necessarily, but can sustain for 4 to 6 hours. In my case, I will go through. Let's say you got a guy that's aspiring to be a top level um, troubleshooter for the SWAT team or for the military, but in his subconscious database, there's some negative programming from his dad or something he picked up when he before the age of 7 that says that puts doubt in his mind. That doubt has the power of 1 million because it's in the subconscious strata. His conscious brain, when as an adult man, only has a power of 1 to 1 million ratio. That's called cognitive dissonance. I can surgically locate that download that gives him doubt or a gap, and I remove it. And when I remove it, it's gone. The other thing I do for guys that are like yourself in that branch of the world is I can remove post traumatic stress syndrome so fast it'll make your head spin. There's no need for medication or any of that stuff. I've never once in my professional career not succeeded in removing post traumatic stress syndrome yet. It's very easy for me because my approach is utterly different from a classical approach.
How does that for somebody that's not familiar with that? Because I like hearing that. How do you approach that? Like you said, you can do it remotely. Like how does that work?
Okay, so very simple, and all of this is peer reviewed science now. It's just the like you and I right now. There's no disconnect wherever you are in the world and me. There's no disconnect whatsoever, and energetically at an actual consciousness energetic level. Now, I use two kinds of frequencies that you can look up right on Google. One is called a destructive interference wave. The other is a constructive interference wave. And everything from a virus to a star to a thought to a word. It's all frequencies. So a destructive interference wave means when they meet each other, they cancel to zero. So if I find something in your subconscious that you don't want anymore, like say fear of failure, so I trace down where in you first downloaded the very first download you ever received that began the complex or the neural nets for fear of failure. And I will disassemble it using destructive interference waves. until I remove it completely. I'll disintegrate it completely. Disassembly process means I'm knocking out all the entanglements relative to that first download. Then I go up to the very next download surgically, and I eliminate it, and I eliminate them all until we reach the age of 7, when the frontal cortex starts. Once I do that, the fear of failure in you as a grown man now has no foundation. There's no software left relative to the fear of failure in your software, in your brain, in your subconscious. Nothing there. Then I come up to you now at your age now, and we ask the question, is there any active program that supports or sustains a fear of failure in me now? And if we get a yes, I will disassemble it and shut it off. Once I do that, it's gone relative to fear of failure. It's gone, done. Uh, and that's a fact. And how do we know it's a fact? From all of my clinical experience. I have like a 98% success rate with anything, as long as they stick with me. Some things we can do like that. Other things might take a few months. See, like post traumatic. Let's take the post traumatic stress syndrome scenario. I had a young lady who came to see me. She's in California, and she's one of those trekkers, real gutsy, not necessarily that intelligent, but real gutsy.
Right.
And she had a boyfriend at the time, and they wanted to go. They're going to go trek across this island. It's a jungle island. I can't remember the name of that island. And she found on the maps like some kind of a trail that led her through the mountains in this tropical rainforest, and they want to walk her and this boyfriend clear across this island. Okay, so that all sounds good, and she's in real good shape and everything. But when she gets to the island and she's in the town where they're going to take off from, they're talking, and so somebody's listening. They get way out there in the jungle, and a group of guys all dressed up so that you can't, like war paint and masks, and that they attack them, they rape her, they beat the living hell out of the kid. He was done, and she tries to scuffle, and in the scuffle, she gets a real bad lacerated arm, cuts her deep. So she's pretty smart, and she convinces these guys they can have all of their gear and everything if they'll just let them live. Meanwhile, she's bleeding profusely. And these guys do it. They take off with all their stuff, and they're out in the middle of the jungle, nowhere. They have no communication, and she's bleeding profusely. So what she does, she holds her arm up to try to have gravity help her. She gathers up that guy that was traumatized, and they start running. They're headed back to the only camp, uh, civilized place that they know, that she knows, and they made it, and it saved her life, and they stopped the bleeding, and so forth and so on. So when she meets me, it's many years later, and when I go into her consciousness, sure enough, she has what I call a SEMO, post traumatic stress syndrome, means sympathetic emotional memory override. What I did was, it just took me maybe 20 minutes. I just have her go back in her memory to that event, and she started crying. And I disassembled that entire event. I disintegrated it, and the post traumatic stress syndrome was done and never come back. Cannot come back because I disintegrated. And that all the post traumatic stress syndrome means, sometimes when we get really shocked, especially if there's heavy emotion, The mind, instead of being able to process it, it locks. Now it records those events at 40 million bits of information a second. So there's all this detail below our consciousness. But it locks. It's like a movie. And anytime there's an environmental trigger that touches off that movie, it plays. As soon as it plays, the hypothalamus and the thalamus dumps all of what we call the neuropeptides that encode that experience back into the system, and they suffer and they relive it. If you shut the movie off, it's gone. Then the brain recalibrates, comes up to the present moment, and you're good to go. And that's what depth healing is able to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's such a interesting way of like I've never really thought of that, but I really like hearing that because traditional therapy, cops, first responders in general are very hesitant on doing that. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that there's definitely some market there for you to start getting this out there and like introducing it
I,
into that first responder world.
I just don't have the contact right now. And here in Thailand, of course, this is a different world entirely. But I'd give anything to find a contact to be able to show them, because what I can do for them is so fast, and it's rock solid. It's just rock solid.
That's
I
awesome.
proved that with sport too. I have three different coaches that I've shown in no uncertain terms what depth healing can do for their teams, and uh, hockey and volleyball take the whole team and just change performance right away. So I'd love to work with first responders. And the amount of stress, people have no clue the kind of stress that the first responders have to deal with. Um, there are so many of the guys, you'll see them. They're seasoned. They're calm, cool, and everything. They move through that world really well. There are a lot of guys. They are not. They are not able to process the stress, the fear, the what they see, what they experience, and it accumulates in their mind and in their body, and it hurts them. It make them angry, resentful, turn them cold, close their heart, all kinds of things. I can help all of that. I can help. I can help all of that, and I can do it from any in the comfort of their home. They don't have to go to a special room and sit and meditate or invest time. I just do it for them. That's the number one difference between myself. It's convenient. You just tell me what my targets are, and I'll change it for you.
That's
It's
awesome.
that it's that simple.
That's awesome. I will definitely get your email after this. We'll see if we can get something set up to where we can get you some contacts if that'd be okay with you.
Oh, are you kidding? That would be so wonderful. And you can always tell these guys, if you go to make contact, I'll be very happy to prove it. You just we'll just set it up, and I'll handle it so they can see it firsthand and experience it firsthand. I always do everything that way. And then if they once they see that, I think it'll blow their mind. So I'll be very proud. That would be wonderful,
That's
because
awesome.
I love those guys. Uh, most people, they just go through their life. They enjoy what they enjoy, and if nothing terrible happens, life is just whatever it is. But for a guy that's a first responder, a real good movie. When I was a young buck, how old are you now?
36.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, when I was 36, when I was your age, the way I trained myself, if you watch the movie The Lawman with Burt Lancaster, that's always my uh, top movie that I recommend
Yep.
for being professional warrior. And then if you watch that movie, to try to understand the kind of stress. It's a war movie, but it's based on true story. Is We Were Soldiers with uh, Mel Gibson, and
Yes.
he plays that commander. And you see his social life, and then he leaves the door, and he goes into this world. And first responder, when like I always think of guys like in Detroit or L.A. or New York or any of the really big cities. Holy mackerel! You know, it, people don't realize. Only the responders know.
Yep.
They only they know.
That's very true. Where, if somebody wanted to get your book, can you tell us about your book and where they could get your book at?
Yeah, the book is just on Amazon. It's a nice little 60-page book that I wrote back in 2012, and it was designed basically for like the Silicon Valley corporate life of nothing but stress. And you can absolutely apply it to first responders because it's all based off of Zen, warrior Zen. There was a great Zen master, Taekwondo, who was the teacher to Zen teacher to Yagyu Tajima no Kami, who was one of Japan's greatest swordsmen. And so this the my book is based off of those teachings. And basically, what it is, um, it's a series of little ways to tie into your body, so that in just regular activities of daily life, no necessity for some special circumstances or a special place or a quiet place. And it's a way of punching a hole in the agenda, which is agendas, remember, are future based. And you have to be when you're a first responder, you've got to be always in condition yellow, so you're awake and aware. Because if you're in a dangerous area and you're in condition white, you can be dead and gone instantly at any moment. You've got to be in yellow so you can go to orange and red, and then of course you don't want to go from white to black, and you freeze and then you're dead and gone. So you have to be in the present. My book is called Want More, sort of a strange name. I made the name because it was for Silicon Valley people. But the idea is, how do you stay present in the moment where you are? So you're awake and aware, and you're sharp and you're on. Because you have, when you're a responder like that, you have to be. You got to be there. And human mind, of course, is weak. It wanders all over the place. It's so easy to be used. The light, like you say, the lights are on, but the guy's vacant for a moment. And I always think, if I was a first responder now and I was at your age, the thing I always trained for, or that I taught, always consider yourself in the, no matter how nice the neighborhood is, that you're in a very, very unpredictable arena, so that you keep your edge. I was watching one of your nice podcasts with that one officer that was a Marine, and then he was Army, and then
Yes.
he was. I like that guy a lot, um, and you could see how sharp he really is. You know,
Oh,
talks real calm,
yes.
but he's as sharp as a razor, and he's ready and he's on, and he's elite. And I always recommend just for no other reason, if you're carrying that Glock or you're carrying a firearm or you got a badge and you got to walk in harm's way, uh, got to be absolutely on. Then you can relax when you go home. You can relax when in your home. But when you're a warrior is a warrior. You got to be sharp like that. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. 100%. Well, Dr. G, I don't want to tie you up all day because I know it's your morning time over there.
Oh,
Um,
I'm enjoying this. You can talk to me for a month. I don't care.
well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And
You're welcome.
I'm going to link some of your stuff in my show notes when it goes live. And then
Sure.
and you are always welcome back on here again, okay?
If you know anybody that would like it in the forces, any branch, and they want to see what I can do for them, please hook me up because I'll take care of them. It'd be my honor.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. G, it was my pleasure to have you tonight, and I will
You're
let you
welcome.
enjoy your day. Have a great day, sir, okay?
Thank you. You too. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.